Hey there, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Common Tongue Podcasts, where this time we're talking to Larg and we're talking to Donovan. And if you don't know who those are, you might want to get on the bandwagon because we're having a lot of fun with Xavier and with Jamieson. This episode's a little dated. I recorded this a couple months back, but you know what? It's all good fun. So hopefully you enjoy this episode. We talk a lot just about getting into D&D, both of them, how they got involved with the DandR Podcast. And honestly, they're both just amazing, wonderful people. So go support them. Go check them out. Hopefully you enjoy what you listen to. And let's get this party started, shall we? Hello, sirs.
Hello there.
Hello.
How are we both doing today?
Doing great. Thanks.
Doing very well. Thank you.
Okay. To everybody listening, welcome to another mediocre attempt at what we call a podcast here at the Common Tongue Podcasts. Today, I am so stoked for this episode. One, because I have two guests instead of just one. Normally, we just have one guest. But today, we have two. If you please, starting on the left and going to the right, would you please introduce yourselves and what you do for the record?
Sure. So my name's Jamieson, and I am a cast member of the Dungeons and Randomness D&D podcast. Have been for about 3 years now.
And I'm Xavier. I'm also a member of the Dungeons and Randomness D&D podcast. And I think I've been a member for about 6 years now. It's hard to tell. Time flies.
Oh, I'm so excited for this episode. So I've been listening to the Dungeons and Randomness podcast for about 4 years now at the beginning of Arc 2.
Okay.
So I'm more familiar with Xavier. Jamieson's character came in about episode 10?
Closer to somewhere around 18 or 20, I think. Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it was a little way in. A lot of stuff happened already on your group before you joined in.
That was true, after Arm was lost and everything already.
Yes.
So for everybody who listens, so specifically with Arc 2, because if people do listen to the podcast, that's probably what they're more familiar with. Jamieson, you played which character?
So I played Larg. He was a half-orc paladin barbarian.
And Xavier, you played...
I played Donovan Weiss. He was a human fighter, and down the line, he became a human fighter paladin.
That's right, because you picked up the armor, didn't you?
That's true. And that was supposed to go one direction, I feel like, and really early in, we kind of stopped that direction for technical reasons. The magic within kind of stopped, but I wanted to keep that thread going, so it kind of fit for wherever this character was going, that he would pursue the path of the paladin. Although in his own way, I didn't want to make, for instance, for a Larg's character who is a very like noble and like good doing paladin. Originally he was. My character was more of a like hedonist, so I was like trying to figure out how he could become a paladin, and using, I don't want to say min-maxing, but using what's in the books, I managed to find a way to make him some sort of like, I guess like a, hedonistic, nature-focused kind of caster. But that didn't even transpire at the end because of what the story was about,
Right. And so, so technically, Xavier here is the senior because he started before you. So how did you... going from Xavier to Jamieson, how did you guys even get involved with the podcast?
I think rather similarly for the both of us. I was also a listener at first. The first I heard of the show was, and that dates it, but I at one of my earlier studios, we didn't have access to the internets to listen to music and stuff like that. So we had to rely on iTunes libraries from our coworkers. and one of the guy working there had DNR on his playlist, and through the magic of i2 playlists, I went through episodes 1 to probably 15 at the time. It was right about the time they went through the time skip. So I was really in there, like, quite in the early days, and it took about a year, I think, before I actually started talking with the cast. I made a few fan arts, and then from there, Jason asked me to do a few like animation things, like promotional things. I'm an animator professionally, and so like he kind of like picked up on that, and we collaborated a few times before I actually made my way to one of the casting calls they made in the earlier days. They don't really do casting calls now, but I managed to get in on that.
So
way
you'd
back
actually
when.
be surprised. I think Casting Call is a website now. And I recently just auditioned for something on Casting Call.
Oh, so it's like a service type thing?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
interesting.
it's a
Okay.
website where people can set up projects and you can audition by uploading voice tracks or
Oh.
just audio
Oh, that's
files.
cool.
Okay,
That's
cool.
nice.
Yeah, it was a much more homemade thing back then. Probably tons of emails with a MP3 attached.
No, yeah, that's basically what it is now. It's just more dedicated to the whoever the casting director is or whoever the person doing the casting call is. They can see, and even people who are auditioning can see every audio file that's been uploaded for the parts that you want to audition for, so you can see who you're going up against.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
cool.
it's very interesting. So, did you follow a similar path with that, Jamieson?
Pretty much, yeah. I had a really long commute when I was working around the time that I found the show, and I was searching around through all these different podcasts because that was my main entertainment for 1 to 2 hour drives. And I had kind of lost interest in a lot of the other shows I was listening to. I won't say what they were because it doesn't matter, but I was scrolling through and I eventually just kind of popped on Dungeons and Randomness. I was like, sure, give it a shot. And the first episode I heard, I really liked. So I was like, I have no idea what this is, like what I'm listening to, but it's fun. So I went back to like to the 150th episode. I was like, that's a nice round number. I'll start there. Loved that one. Didn't know what I was listening to. So I went all the way back to 1 and then started from the beginning. But the job I had at the time was very, I was able to kind of just listen to episodes the entire time while I was working. It like didn't disrupt my work at all. So I probably listened to 2 or 3 a day until I caught up. So
Oh wow, and those are not short episodes either.
No, early on they weren't short at all, and I was around 170 or 180 back when I found the show or something like that. Wow. I caught up in a few months, so I went fast, and I went from being like, "This is really cool," to, "Man, I really like this. I gotta like," and then I found the community and started talking to people, and then it went to being like, "I'd love to be involved with something like this." And then by the time I caught up, it was like, "Well, I have to be involved with this somehow. I have to find a way to get."
Oh
yeah,
yeah, I understand that completely. I know. So I mostly got involved with the community when they announced the groups, the fan groups for the podcast, and I'm actually a dungeon master for one of them.
Oh, cool. Nice.
It's group 5, and nobody here is probably going to really care about it, but I'll tell you guys just because I think it's a really cool idea. So it's about the time that Umanuro was lifted into the sky, and basically the premise of the story is that the city is under attack, and there are mages who are attempting to drop the city.
That's sweet.
Okay,
I think that's really good. There's so much history that Jason's created for the show that actually picking one stuff from the past and like building something out of it is a really, really smart idea.
Yeah, I thought it was a really clever idea, if I'm going to be 100% honest, because it deals with budding, I guess, systems, or not necessarily system, but groups that are in the storyline. So it was just really funny because we had to think about, because Darmok. Darmok's not one of the demon lords then. And so we're playing with the demon lord who Darmok took the place of. And I even have a thing where there is a demon lord involved with the story now. and it's basically the origin story, or not necessarily the origin story, but it's similar in line with how when Merrick found the little statue that had Barak in it.
Yeah.
There's a similar storyline, but it's just happening hundreds of years before Merrick found it.
Cool. Has it been running for a while?
I want to say we've been running for almost a month now, 2 months.
Okay, cool.
And they hate me. I'm convinced that they hate me because their second fight was with a Red Dragon veteran, and they were level 2.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's high risk, high reward kind of situation. I'll
For
give
sure.
them this huge boss, and then they'll get something crazy out of it. Like they managed to get a deck of many things.
Okay.
Yeah. It's incentive enough.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in a city of mages, like you can go crazy with the rewards. That's fine. That's really cool.
Exactly. That's what's and I didn't expect it, but there was a moment where the cast, well, my cast, it's not really a cast, there's no show. One of the characters had a moment that they weren't expecting. And I was like, oh, I can put music to this. This is going to be great. And it was a sad, somber music. And at the end of that session, I was like, that we should have been recording that. That was beautiful. It was insane. Just the stuff that happens. Because you have so many people who are invested in the story that you guys have created with Dungeons and Randomness.
Mm-hmm. It's fun when those moments do happen in a game that's not recorded. That's for sure.
Yeah.
It's priceless. Yeah.
Oh, it's fantastic. And so going from that, I wanted to ask both of you, because you're both longtime listeners and now you're cast members, what was the one thing that brought you onto the show that really made you want to be a part of it? I guess we can start with Jamieson, since you're the youngest, and then we can go to, or youngest cast. Jamieson.
Combination of persistence and opportunity, I guess.
Yeah.
So when I first started deciding, like, okay, I'm going to try to get involved in some way, they had actually just started a casting call at around that time. The last one that they officially did, the last one where they put it out to the listenership to like submit things, which is the one that brought Michael into the show.
Mm-hmm.
So I submitted that. They called me, we did an interview, and they decided to go with Michael, which is totally fine. He fit the group that they joined, they added him to perfectly. But at that point I was like, well, that can't be it, right? Like doesn't end there. So every now and then I would just kind of hit them up and be like, hey, so, I was thinking about this, and this, and I try not to be pushy or anything, but just kind of being like, hey, I'm still interested. I don't recommend doing what I did, because it was not, it wasn't cool. But I was definitely staying involved. I ended up doing, helping them with one of their Patreon tiers, doing some illustrations, like monster illustrations and things like that, being an active part of the community, showing up at live events and stuff like that. But every few months I would just send them an email, be like, hey, just want to let you know I'm still interested.
I don't know if you'll allow me to share this, Jamieson. But back in the forum days, I remember you hit me up, send me a private message and pitched me an idea for a character you wanted to pitch for your audition, I think.
Yeah.
From there, you basically try to get your little hooks in.
Yeah, I bothered you about that, and I bothered Kelsey about it, because Kelsey was really active in the forums.
Yeah.
I was actually wondering if you remembered that was me who did that way back then.
Yeah. The bad neighbor thing stuck.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Can I actually be 100% honest with you guys?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So the only other person that I got to, I guess, even say something back to me was Alex. But I found out that Alex worked in mobile gaming with Riot. And in my head, I was like, okay, I'm going to do something completely different with him. I have messaged so many people from the cast. It's not even funny trying to get 2 people to do this.
Booking sessions is just as difficult, for sure.
Yeah, even as a cast member, it's hard to get replies from other cast members.
Oh, no, I believe that 100%, because I think I was talking with Alex on his... I watch his Twitch stream not pretty regularly, but I'll pop in at least once, twice a week.
Cool.
And I was just talking to him, and he said, "Yeah, not Alex. Karen is really busy. Valerie's really busy. Everybody has jobs that are either new. I think didn't Valerie just get a new job?
Val
Who
is like
knows?
at the peak of her college, university college. I don't know what the proper term from different countries are, but like big
I-
school.
Yeah, she's
big
in grad
school.
school too, so she's incredibly overwhelmed. Her time management is fun to participate in.
I will say I don't miss college, but I also miss not having to pay back my student loans.
Yeah, yeah. So that's another thing that might be foreign. I don't know what student loans are like for you, Xavier, but they're no fun.
Well, my education, my highest education degree didn't go too far above high school, but I did manage to get like 3 years, actually 5 years worth of animation school for like, I don't know, $2,000 Canadian.
Oh my god!
Holy
Welcome-
crap! Are you kidding
welcome,
me?
no, welcome to socialism. It works.
I've threatened it before. I'm going to show up, knock on your door one day, and just with a
Yeah.
duffel bag.
That's
Like,
fine.
I live here now.
You're welcome here.
My wife and I have made several jokes about moving to Canada,
Yeah, I'm pretty
but
close.
at this point, they're not jokes. We're actually
It's not-
probably seriously considering it.
It's not a bad idea.
If I had any marketable skills that Canada wanted, I would be there for sure. Because you got to like have a job skill that they want, and then they'll sponsor you to move. Basically, I've looked into it.
All I know is animation, so just start doodling.
Yeah, I mean, we should talk about that because I've been thinking about some things.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You know, Jamieson, you might. Granted, Xavier, that's ridiculous. How little you had to pay for your schooling, but Jamieson, when I went my undergraduate degree, I only paid. The most I ever paid was $2,800 a semester.
I couldn't even tell you what I paid. I honestly, here's the thing, and not to get into it too much, but I went to college for theater as a technical theater. So I was like a designer and a director. It took me 13 years to get a 4-year degree. So I'm the absolute worst case scenario as far as higher education goes. Like I went to a state college for an arts degree, and it took me 13 years to finish. And I have the student debt to prove it, and the complete and a job that has nothing to do with my degree. So don't do what I did.
No, that's kind of where I'm at right now. You know, I got my degree in linguistics, and I was convinced I was going to stay in that field till I died. And then COVID hit, and nobody got back to me on job offers. And randomly, I remembered that my wife had an interface and a mic, and I said, screw it, let's do podcasting.
Damn, talking's linguistics, right?
Yeah.
Well, specifically, I deal with the weird sounds that people make. I'm a phonetician.
Okay, cool. Okay.
So I specifically for example, Xavier, I'm sorry about this. I don't know if we can still be friends after this. I don't like French.
Oh no.
Oh, no.
Nobody
Yeah,
likes the French.
Well, no. Specifically the language. I don't like the French language because everybody complains that German is a very guttural language. And I think it's the opposite. I think German sounds fine, and French is one of the most languages you can have.
Yeah, no, I mean, from a linguist's perspective, that's like very interesting to hear. But also, like, I don't know, that might just be like my thing, but there's such a marked difference between the French in France and the French here in Quebec. I don't know if like you've studied both differently, but I feel like the more guttural, the more like R's, like you've said, the more like the hon hon hon. That's more French. And up here in Quebec, it's more nasally. It's more like yeah.
Really?
That's me. That's how I talk.
See, that's very
time.
interesting to hear because my mom is from Venezuela, so I speak Spanish, not natively, but I speak Spanish pretty well. And I served a mission for my church in Southern California. And it was very different hearing the Spanish from people who are from Central America, like Mexico, Nicaragua, or anywhere from in there, and hearing my mom's Spanish because we cut off a lot of our S's.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really funny because my wife and I were watching Jack Ryan, And it was really funny to hear the accents, because the second season takes place in Venezuela. And it was funny because to my wife, I kept saying, that person's a Venezuelan actor. You can tell that they know that accent, or however, just because of how they spoke it.
Mm-hmm.
So have you noticed that, where you can tell if somebody's from Canada or France when they speak French?
Oh yeah. It's a drastic difference. It's like American English and British English. Like it's miles, leagues different. When we localize stuff like movies or like video games, maybe there's always going to be the like North American French version and then the European French version, and they need to be separate because just the words we use, sometimes we don't use the same words, and like it can create confusion. So the French we hear when we watch dubbed movies sounds French to us. It sounds like a more international and more proper French to what we speak here. But then if we hear the same movie like from a French dub, it sounds wild. It's completely different.
Some local guy in his basement.
Yeah, and then what Jamieson and I have to deal with here in America is just understanding somebody's accent whenever they come from a different part of the world.
Yeah, no, it's not. I mean, I worked. So before I had the job I had now, I worked in tourism for 10 years. So I dealt with people from everywhere. And yeah, it's. I mean, even just different states. If it's more than 2 states over, it's a different country basically. But you know, I mean, we had the Europeans, the Canadians, the French Canadians, the Southern, the Western, the flyover country, everybody. So you learn to place people pretty well by their accents, but I also don't really sound like I'm from where I'm from. So you can't.
I was going to ask, where were you raised?
Well, so I've been in the Boston area most of my life, but my dad's from Texas. My mom's local. My dad's from Texas, and I was actually born in Colorado. But
so you're like me, great.
Yeah, so I just don't. I have some of the accent. When I was working in Boston, I had more of the accent. My wife, who's lovely and beautiful and maybe can hear me, has a much thicker accent than I do, a Boston accent, more so when she's around her family. And my kids are developing it, which I have mixed feelings about.
No, yeah. So I was born in Idaho and then raised in the South. And then I lived in Utah for about 5 years while I was getting my degree. And now my wife and I moved to Oregon. But it's really funny because, so like I was telling you guys before we started recording, my wife and I recently, we got married back in March, but we had our religious ceremony this past Saturday.
Okay.
And my parents were able to fly in despite everything that's going on. Everything was fine. Nothing bad happened. Everything was cool. And so at the reception, there were maybe like 8 people. My parents were telling embarrassing stories or funny stories about me when I was a kid. And one of the ones that they told was, apparently when I was about 6 or 7, I came home from the 2nd or 3rd grade with the thickest Southern drawl that you can imagine coming out of a little person's mouth. And immediately my mother said, "No, sir. We're not having that in my house.
We are moving."
So she properly, no, and we actually moved, not granted, we moved from Arkansas to Tennessee, not that that's much of a difference. But my mom, interestingly enough, she told me later, and this is actually a thing. I'm actually planning on recording a whole show about language issues. She actually told me years later that the reason she said that is because she didn't want people judging her children based on their accent.
I mean, that's fair to a degree. Yeah. I mean, people do. Not that it's right, but some people do that. Yeah.
And it's an unconscious thing. You know, we don't think about it, but it's there in the back of everybody's heads.
Sure.
For sure.
So I imagine, I don't know if Xavier has this, but let's say you went to France, right?
Yeah.
If you started speaking French and people knew you were from Canada, they would probably have certain reservations just from how you speak.
Oh yeah, there's a whole thing between Quebec and France too, especially Paris. There's a whole rivalry, and like you'll order like a Coke or something, and they'll just, I mean, there's probably stereotyping, but like they'll pretend they can't understand you. Like, I'm sorry, sir. What you want to what?
Oh, they treat you like you're an
Because
English
you
speaker
just don't
then.
say the same word. Like you'd ask for a Coke, and they'll say like, "Oh, you mean a Coca?" Like it's just like they know.
Yeah.
But even just within here, like within the province of Quebec, like from region to region, like the same thing applies. Like there's so many varieties. I'm like, you'll judge someone.
And it's so interesting. People do it, and it's normal. People.
Oh yeah.
It was one of the most interesting things I learned in my undergraduate degree. It was called I don't know if this is the technical term, but my professor called it linguicism.
Interesting.
Yeah, linguistic racism, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, I plan on doing a whole show based on language issues just so I can get something out of my degree.
Good
Nice.
on you. Yeah.
Okay, so getting back into Dungeons and Dragons, because that's probably what most people are here for. What was the thing that got you both into Dungeons and Dragons just as a game in general? I guess whoever wants to go first, just pipe up.
I'll go. I wanna scream it. It was LARPing.
Oh no.
Oh no.
I guess if I really, really trace it back, like in the very few like inklings of D&D, it was probably my cousin who knew of D&D and basically came to my home and was like, "Oh, let's play this game I made up." And like he basically drew on a 8x11 sheet of paper, and like he drew like boxes for equipment. He drew a little sword in it, and he like wrote some things, and he was like, "All right, he basically ran it like a whatever that kids run, but like he made me think about stuff that were in video games, but like now it's on paper and now it's in my mind kind of thing." And that's where it's kind of like I understood that you could play a video game not in a video game. And that was kind of about the same time I was reading a few like what are those called? The novels that you read, and you flip between like the pages depending on what
like
you
choose your own adventure.
Choose your own adventure. Yeah, there we go.
And yeah, mm-hmm.
I guess that would be it. But then, like, fast forward a few years, maybe first or second year of high school, I got these friends of mine who are like, "Hey, man, I totally play an assassin. I got robes. I got a foam dagger. Do you want to come play with me?" I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds cool." And then I had a blast, man. For real, I didn't LARP a lot. I wasn't a LARPer per se, but I did like 4 weekends of LARPing maybe total in that era, and I had such a fun time. It's basically camping for 3 days with like my friends' older brothers and stuff like that. So there's this nostalgia with it that comes with it, and like I played some cool like undead hunter characters. The people running the LARP were really good with it. There were some really fun events. I was playing this samurai in an actual open field under a full moon at night, surrounded by people who like wanted me dead. And then I took a hit in the eye and like fell on my back for the next 5 hours. I was like, "All right, I'm dead.
So I need to interrupt you for a minute. Are you the kind of D&D player who nowadays will come to a session in full getup?
No, I wish it was me though.
Oh.
I don't have that kind of dedication.
The budget issue.
Yeah.
No.
So what about you, Jamieson? What got you into D&D?
Myself, honestly. I was the one in my friend group who had the idea to start. I'm a comics guy, so my comic shop started expanding to other hobbies, and they had card games, and I played Magic a lot at that age, and they started getting D&D and other role-playing games in. So every time I was in the comic shop, which was basically weekly, I'd see this display. This is right when 3rd edition came out, so they had all these fancy like beginners boxes and box sets and all these things, and every week I was in there, I'd look at that display and be like, "That looks so cool, I want to try that." And then eventually I just bought it. I wrote my brother and his friends into, "All right, you guys make characters. We're going to go through this starter adventure and see what this is. If it's fun, we'll keep doing it. If it's not, we'll stop." And we kept doing it, and it was a lot of fun. And that was basically it. Like, that group still meets and plays. My brother and his friends, they all still meet and play. Obviously, I'm doing this instead. They don't invite me to play with them anymore. So, but
So
yeah,
wait,
that
you
was pretty
said you
much
started
it.
playing when 3E came out?
Yeah, when 3E came out was well, I don't know if it was exactly then, but that was the current edition when I started playing.
So this must have been in
This
the
is around.
90s?
This was like late, early 2000, probably like 2000,
Okay.
2001. Yeah.
Huh. Because I was trying to think. I've only ever known 5E. And that's
Oh,
weird to me
really?
to think that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first time I actually played D&D was my second year in college. I was a sophomore in college, and there was a place close to me where I lived that did Friday Night Magic. And from there, just going to Friday Night Magic, I learned that they also they were doing D&D campaigns there. And that was
Okay.
where I
Yeah.
got involved with it. And back and forth, on and off, I would go and play just because of scheduling issues with either school or work. Because that's what you get when you work full time and you go to school full time, is that you don't have a social life. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have a lot of time to play D&D that often, but whenever I did, I went hardcore with it. I loved being able to create a character and then control that character wholly, to know that character's thought process and everything that they would do. That was something that just blew my mind for some reason. I love that aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing that you kind of, or at least with my group, like everybody was very hesitant to get into that. But every now and then people like one by one start to fall into character more and more, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
so much just sitting around the table making jokes. You starting to play as your character. It's a cool when that happens, if you can get it to happen.
No, yeah. So starting with Xavier, because this is something that I personally am just interested in, just because of what I've heard from the podcast that you guys are in. When was the moment that you started being invested in your character to where you actually started putting yourself into that character?
Um, to be completely honest, for Donovan in arcs 2 and 3, I've struggled a really long time to like find his voice or invest myself in it. I really tried for a long time. I think it came together around the end of arc 3. But I always felt like I was kind of forcing it, and I never was really satisfied with Donovan to the end. In fact, the epilogue for this character, whatever comes after the end of arc 3, to me is where I would have had the most fun with Donovan. Because I thought about that a lot. I don't know how Jason's gonna put whatever is left for the characters. Maybe he'll use it for this show, so not to spoil anything, but like where that character is at is where I would have had the most fun playing him. But for Actoronus, the Arc 1 character, like doing goofy stuff, doing more bizarre characters or more aloof characters is easier for me. I have a lot more fun because in real life, as a person, I have a really short attention span, and like I lose my train of thought really fast. So I kind of prefer doing characters who do one or two lines and then it ends with kind of like a little funny note at the end, and then I can just like back up a little bit, let someone else step in,
Mm-hmm.
rather than trying to be like Donovan, who's kind of like an extrovert. He's got the diplomacy skills and the like whatever, so he kind of has to talk more, and I'm not as comfortable with those type of characters. So for Actoronus, kind of like a weird undead knight noble dude who tries to be a hero and stuff like that. It's much more fun. Like I instantly like get that character. And for the newest character I'm playing, Dr. Chapman, like that's a whole other thing. I'm gonna have so much fun with that guy. There's a lot more for him coming. I can promise you that. But the accent thing, it's gonna take me a while.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing
I
great with
get
the
that.
accents.
Yeah.
Good.
But I'll do it.
Yeah. What about you, Jamieson? When did you feel that you were putting more effort into Larg?
I don't mean it this way, but it's going to sound this way right away. Like I felt I put a lot of thought into characters, whether I'm writing or playing a role playing game or whatever. And the reason why is because I can't pretend. I'm not good enough an actor to pretend to be invested. Like, I have to find a way to actually be there. Otherwise I can't. It just sounds fake, at least to me. So the way that I started doing it, probably from my theater degree, there you go, as a director trying to talk, work with actors, is you have to put, like, there's no way you can play something that doesn't have at least a part of yourself in it. So I just lean into that and put a part of myself in the character. And the thing that gets the best result is if you always put one of your own anxieties in the character, right? So Larg's entire thing is, what if I'm not a good person? That's his entire thing right there. So if you just lean into that, if you lean on that while you're playing the character, there it is. That's it.
You could have told me that before. What a good tip.
Okay, no. So knowing this, I have to ask you a very important question then.
Okay.
So with Larg's character, you guys met outside the city of Durnhollow, or was it Donhurst?
Donhurst.
It was Donhurst. So were you already thinking that with his character, or did that come more to the forefront? To everybody listening, spoilers, did that come to the forefront after he was revived and there was that piece of him missing?
Actually, I thought that him reviving with that madness trait, at first I was worried that ruined the character.
Really?
Yeah, because the thing I didn't want to do with him is go that whole fallen paladin route that I think is such a trope, and I tried really hard to avoid it and have it be like, well, I had all these convictions, but forget it, I'm evil now, or whatever. I tried really hard not to do that. So yeah, no, from the beginning, that's what it was. That's why he was a paladin, right? Like, he's a half orc. Everybody sees him as a certain way, and he, behaved a certain way when he was younger. And then he has that thought, like, what if I'm not a good person? What if I'm not as good a person as I thought I was? And that leads him on the path to becoming a paladin in the first place,
See, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I loved Larg's character because I saw that in him, that whole I guess not necessarily self-deprecating, but that self-doubt. And that's something that I personally feel a lot. And I guess that's why I loved the character so much. But when he revived, I think the interesting thing about that was I saw it as an internal conflict where he still had that, I'm trying to be a good person, but now there's something in me that says hurt people.
Yeah, I don't know if I had a consistent way of approaching it, because it did kind of come up a few times, but mostly I try to think of it as like an addict who's falling off the wagon more often now, like somebody who, you're a recovering alcoholic and you've been good for years and years and years. You're in this program, you have the coin, you go to the meetings, but then something happens and you get a drink, and Larg has a bar fight and throws people off the roof, and then then he's back on the wagon again for a little while, but something happens and then he tortures somebody, and then it's like falling off the wagon for an addict is kind of the way I tried to do it.
And I saw that. I loved it. I thought you played the character very well. That's why I cried when Larg died, is because I felt like you did a good job with putting that emotion and making that character seem more believable, I guess, if that makes sense.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I tried really hard, because the way that I get through things is like, I have to figure out a way to make it work for me, and hopefully that means it also works for other people.
Yeah, Larg was a really strong presence the moment you joined the show. I remember the first time I heard your voice, I thought there was something wrong with my podcast app. Like, there's no way this guy's voice is so deep.
It was worse because I was nervous, so I dropped it. I tend to drop it in situations like that.
It was so good, man. Larg left such an impression on the listeners, man. It made a really, really, really strong impression on the listeners too. Like, he's one of the most, well, if not the most beloved character of Arc 2 and 3 for sure. Like, and you, I mean, like, you did a fantastic job.
Thank you. I mean, a lot of that was luck, though. Like, the circumstance that led to him joining the group, and everybody who was in the group already, obviously being so good, and Jason handling it the way he did. A lot of that is, I can't take credit for it.
But I mean, you werewolf one suplex. You suplex one werewolf, and I mean, you've cemented your place.
That's true. That was good. I felt good about that. I still feel good about
I'm sure.
For me, it was your off-the-cuff humor. the first minute where I fell in love with you as a person was that joke you made when you were in the forest when you said, "I'm Larg and in Charg." That was one of my favorite moments. I would go back and listen to that over and over again, just that one clip.
I wish that was off the cuff. I had that in my pocket.
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought it was genius. But
Thanks.
I think the one thing that I liked about Donovan was, and this is coming from my personal looking at the show from an outsider's perspective, basically. Hey there, everybody. I just want to take a minute to thank today's sponsor, Gamerware. Now, Gamerware is a gamer clothing and accessory brand focused on the gaming industry, if you couldn't tell from the name. However, their products are eco-friendly and are really high quality. They focus on eco-conscious clothing, collaboration, and innovation within the clothing industry. They have some really, really amazing stuff. I highly recommend checking out their Explorer t-shirt. I really love that one, but any of their t-shirts, Cybershark, Ambush, Blaze, Robopunk, Samurai, Sensei Ape, all their t-shirts look super good. And if you're looking to elevate your gaming look, you have to check out their custom 2021 jerseys for gamers. You can customize them however you want with your gamer tag, and they just look really clean and they're really high quality. So if you'd like to check out Gamerware today, go to their website at gamerware.com. That's GAMERWEAR.com and use code TCT10 to save 10% off. That's TCT10 at checkout to save 10% off your entire purchase. And now, back to the episode. Donovan, to me, seemed like he was struggling with who he was in terms of who his past character was, but then all of a sudden finding gods and then trying to conform to that, but still having like that hard time doing that.
Yeah, that was an angle I really wanted to play too, because part of it is because I wanted to follow like that meta line of like following what the armor was doing. But I think what really helped me is like the players and the characters I was surrounded by, like the Susan's character, Ubo's character, and then everything that happened with Masoka and Monitor. Like there's so much religion, even though it's like
Pseudo religion.
Yeah, but I mean, polytheist. Yes,
Yeah,
that's the term I'm looking for. It still works in D&D in the sense that like they're all true, they're all valid, they all work together. So it's not an issue of like choosing one god. But yeah, I think Susan supported me a lot in that, like those character moments, stuff like that. And there's always good like dramatic moments in Group A that it kind of like the momentum was always like relaunched. So like when one character had a moment of crisis, like something happened, and then that kind of like thrust us again like in another direction for a few episodes, and then it kind of like came to another character crisis, and then we had to resolve that again. And I feel like that helped me with Donovan for sure, for that kind of like religious purpose that he was aspiring to, which in the end kind of ended up being like a completely different god, but that was basically like one that his lifestyle meshed with.
Yeah, I thought that was a great pick. Yeah.
The funny thing is that not to rip on anybody in this show, because I love you guys. I love every person in the show, and I love everything that you've done. Maybe, and I think I'm waiting for the epilogue, because where Arc 3 ended, I felt like it was just cleanly cut off, and I wasn't expecting it.
I think so too, and I don't want to say too much on this because it's more on Jason's part to speak on that topic for sure. I think a lot of us wanted to do an extended rest or something. I think the circumstances were out of our control. Right. At that point, there's a lot of stuff that happened like in real life that kind of like reshuffled some priorities, and that we don't know much of that on the player's end. It really like it's in the hands of Jason and Bree, and they're really busy. And I know they want to do something about that. I don't know how or what approach they want to do or when or if, but I can't promise that we'll do something. One thing I know is I asked Jason is I want to use Donovan's Twitter account to kind of do like a little like in tweets epilogue kind of thing and try to just use that Twitter account to just convey that stuff's still happening and kind of like explain what's the after arc 3 to find a way, because with the amount of recording and editing Jason has to do right now, there's no room to add like an epilogue at the moment, I think. And again, I don't want to speak for him, but I think we all want these answers, and he talked about it recently too in a survey little episode he did, and like I feel him. Like I know there's a lot of story he wants to tell, but it's just logistically it's so difficult to put it all out there because there's just so much.
And I think that was one of the interesting, because so you both did work on the Adventurer's Guide to Theria, right?
Jamieson more than me for sure. I did some illustrations for it, but as a freelancer. But Jamieson can take that because
Xavier was on my Rolodex of artists I was working with for sure.
So that was something that surprised me, was that you guys were, and this is probably valid for all the work that you guys have done. It impressed me so much that you guys were able to release the Adventurer's Guide to Theria while you were still recording episodes.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for the amount of work that everybody put in on top of the normal show duties, on top of just everything else that everybody was working on. Because, I mean, for me, I'd go to work in my office in the morning, and I'd spend my first hour in the office working on DandR book stuff before anybody, noticed. And then I'd do my job, and I'd come home and I would parent and put the kids to bed. And then I'd get back on my computer and do more book stuff until I went to bed, and that was for over a year almost.
That's crazy.
So, carry that through to Jasper, who spent the better part of 4 months doing nothing but book stuff, I think, when he was doing the layout, and Susan and Valerie and everybody who was helping with editing. Like the amount of sheer man hours that went into that without dropping anything else was pretty unbelievable.
Whoops. Ah!
We lose you?
Okay, I think we're going to be good. But so it cut off when you said the fact that people were able to not drop anything.
Right. Yeah. No, I guess I'd kind of tailed off. Yeah. No, it just was very impressive that everybody was able to carry all the work of that book on top of everything else, and without really missing a beat. Is kind of what I was getting at.
Because like I don't know if we said this of the airs, but like we're quote unquote professional D&D players, but aside from Jason and Bree, like everyone's doing all of this just by sheer passion. Like it's all a work of love where nobody's paid for this. In fact, a lot of us lose money getting very invested in like the project and stuff like that and helping Jason. But yeah, like everything people, except for the book specifically though, where there was like a budget for the book, so the people who helped for the book did get some amount of compensation for sure.
Right.
But there's so much going on the side, like there's like the animations I do on my end to help Jason out, and the stuff Jasper just puts out, just cool graphic art, like just cool funny jokes he does, or banners, stuff like that. Like everyone wants the show to be good. I think everyone wants to participate. I think that's what attracts people, make people want to be on the cast too, is like people want to contribute to the show in some shape or form. Everyone's got something they can contribute, and I think that's very healthy too for the continuation of the show as it is.
No, and I think that's something that's very interesting too, especially now that I am recording my own podcast. I think it speaks to what you want to do versus what you can do, especially in terms of continuity. Like you were saying, people want answers to the end of arc 3, but there needs to be a continuity of the story, and that's why I think that's why it's important that we just be, at least from the listener's perspective, from people who aren't a part of the show, it's just important that we just enjoy it for what it is. And if we get answers, they'll come, whether it's in the form of either a Good Morning Theria or an extended rest or Patreon or whatever.
Mhm.
You know, for Jason, I guess it's his baby. And so he has a lot more to work on than I think a lot of people realize. And I think we just need to be patient with that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure something will come, like to satisfy this hunger for endings. It's just, yeah, it just didn't happen like right away. But yeah, I'm pretty sure we'll have something, and we'll, like, all the players are gonna get to help out with this. I'm hoping. If Jason won't do it, I'll do it. Damn it.
I'll pick it up.
Yeah, they're very vocal about hesitating to ask too much of the cast, which is kind of a back and forth. I'm not sure exactly what the right balance is for that, because they don't want to ask too much from us because everybody's busy and we're not paid for it. But on the other hand, like Xavier said, like, we all want to help and make the show be as good as it can be. So it's a weird balancing act of how much can they do themselves. When is it time to ask us to help? How much do we insist on helping before they let us, and all that. But I mean, as far as the story wrapping up too, like, the balance between it being a game, right? Because we're playing Dungeons and Dragons, and then being a show where we're trying to tell a story. Like, Jason has to throw out so many plot threads that just to see what the group picks up on, that it would be impossible to try to wrap them all up by the end of the show, right? Because some stuff just doesn't really end up going anywhere. Plus, you have 18 player characters. That's essentially
Right.
18 protagonists to this story. Like, I wish there was a way to make that all wrap up neatly. I'm not sure if it's possible though.
Just did it again. What the heck?
Can't help you. I don't know anything about podcasting.
You're in Canada. You can't even help me. You're too far away.
It's true.
Okay, so I guess to wrap it up, because we're coming close to the hour-ish mark, Xavier, I know you have a baby that you have to deal with, and I know you both are on the East Coast. So I just want to ask you guys a few personal questions about your preferences in D&D, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So, Jamieson, we're going to start with you, just because I'm interested to see both your answers, but it seems like you have... Well, okay, let's actually ask this question first. Who has the most experience in terms of playing D&D? Would that be you, Xavier?
I want to say yes, but I don't know. Jamieson's been around.
I mean, probably. I played a little bit in high school, a little bit in college, and then almost not at all after that until the show. So.
Yeah, I would say I've played pretty consistently since like 2007 or so.
Okay, so you guys have been around for a lot of editions.
So it's 3.5 for me. I dabbled in 3 as a retro thing, but yeah.
So which edition is your favorite? I guess starting with Xavier, and then we'll go to Jamieson.
I think 5th edition must be my favorite for the simplicity of it. I think after all these years, I'm really happy that they've mashed a bunch of rules together and simplified a lot of rules. But I do miss the heavy amount of customization that was present in 3.5, and then like Pathfinder and systems that try to emulate 3.5. I really like having like a ton of, I don't know if I can a whole lot of skills, and like spend points in those skills and really make your characters as close as like what the idea you have in your mind, and you're not like tied to the vagueness of fifth edition. 5th edition is way more vague now, but man, the advantage system is so simple, so good.
Yeah. What about you, Jamieson?
Yeah, 5th edition, honestly, like, for almost exactly the reasons Xavier said. Like, 3 and 3.5 were very crunchy. Like, you could get into very tiny specific details, which sometimes you want. Like, I've played game systems that I still really enjoy that are very crunchy systems with a lot of rules. But I really like the simplicity of 5th edition. I think that it's streamlined, that you can play it very quickly. You can learn it pretty easily. You can make a character in 15 minutes if you know what you're looking for. Like it is very well streamlined, and I appreciate it for that.
Yeah, I do miss the
I
weird classes from 3.5 and like the
True.
million expansion
Yeah.
books. Boy.
Okay, no, and that leads into the next question that I actually wanted to ask. What, from every edition that you've played, what is your favorite class?
Warlock. Yeah, Warlock for sure.
I like I lean towards melee classes. I like fighters and monks and rogues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, for some reason, even going back to the days when I played World of Warcraft, I love playing rogues and rangers and those kinds of characters. I love that just sneaky aspect of playing games. Even when I was playing games like Final Fantasy V, where you could customize your class 100% to what you wanted. The only reason I would play heavier characters in Final Fantasy V or get those classes is so that I could go back and do ninja stuff like dual wield and those kind of stuff with the heavy class weapons.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only reason why I did that stuff.
Yeah. I guess I'm kind of like the same way with Warlock, where like I love Warlock if I can make them into like a big two-handed weapon heavy hitter, but still a Warlock. Like that's my go-to.
A specific flavor of Warlock.
Yes.
Yeah, I like playing magic swordsmen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That is my favorite thing in the world. I just started playing Dark Souls 3 again after I don't even know how many years, and I'm trying to build a magic swordsman build out of that, and it's not working as well as I thought it would, but it's making progress.
You'll get there. Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll see. So I guess this is where it gets to the difficult part of my job, because I have so many things that I want to ask, but I don't know what to ask in the last 5 minutes that we have.
I can give you 5 more. You got 5 more. I can give you 10.
What is one thing that you would recommend to people who are hesitant to get into Dungeons and Dragons but are interested in it? I guess starting now, we'll go Jamieson to Xavier.
I would say to, if you're playing with people you trust, then I think that there shouldn't be any hesitation at all. I think that, it's just like anything else. You try out, you give it a shot, you trust your...
Wait a minute. Everybody, if you're drinking at home, take a shot. We have... I live close to a fire station, and that is the fire station.
Oh, I was like, is that an air raid?
Yeah,
what's going on?
Like, I hope this is a wooden shelter you're in.
No. Yeah, no, the Germans are coming.
Wow.
I was afraid for you.
No, so I live in the middle of Bucktooth Nowhere, Oregon. I think there are maybe 5 roads in total in the town that we live in, and I live right across the street from the fire department, and that's their alarm to let people know that there's a fire. Huh? Yeah.
Wow, that sounded like some Fallout stuff.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So that's the life that I live. So I have a joke with the people who I play Dungeons and Dragons with, that if you hear that, take a shot. That's it's a drinking game now.
I hope it starts happening like on every podcast or every other podcast, so like it becomes a whole thing for your show.
You go to a speed round as soon as you hear that. Yeah,
right. Yeah. Okay, cool. 1 minute questions each. Let's go. So basically, don't have hesitation with your friends if it's people that you trust.
Don't have hesitations with your friends, and if you're playing with strangers, like if you go to a Friday night game night or whatever it is at your local shop or something, if that's how you're going to do it, I'd say go with a friend, unless you're a really extroverted person, in which case you don't need my advice because you're better at that than I
am. Xavier, what about you?
I would say there's no pressure, either on any aspect of it. There's no pressure on knowing the rules. There's no pressure on being a good role player if you have no idea what role playing is. There's no pressure in just wanting to play the game. Like it's fine to just play the numbers. If you just want to do the video game, quote unquote, it's okay too. Like, and yeah, I guess reading the room is the biggest advice I can give you. Like, try to read the room, and especially if you don't know the people, there's no need for conflict around the table, is what I would say. If it's not for you, it's not for you, or maybe try another group possibly, but there's no need for friction. It's a fun game. There's no need for friction.
Yeah, I'm just going to add to that and say it's very common that everybody's at the table for a different reason. Like, so somebody's there for the video game aspect, some of it. Some people are there to win the game. Some people are there to break the game.
Yeah.
Some people are there to just hang out with friends and make jokes at the table. Some people are there to role play. So ideally, you'd have a group who all want the same thing out of the game. But depending on where you live and who your friends are, that might not be the case. So you have to be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Right. And it was just interesting. This past week, my group played, we were playing our campaign, and one of the characters did something. And in the middle, I was talking with another character who was involved with one of the actions that the character did. And I took her to the side because we were planning something and it was going to be really funny. And she was telling me all this stuff that she was really annoyed with what he did. And at the end of the session, he piped up and he's like, "Hey, did I do something wrong? I thought I was playing the character right." And we all sat down and explained why we thought that this action didn't suit his character and why she was so annoyed towards it. And then he said, "Oh, well, I thought I was playing the character right. I didn't know that this is..." It was really interesting because he was really willing to, I guess, not exactly admit his fault, but just concede the point where he didn't understand something and he acknowledged that he played his character incorrectly and then was willing to fix it.
That's good. That's
rare.
It's good to have that.
Yeah. It was shocking to see that, especially when you have a character that you want to play it this way and then you find out that, oh, that's not how you play that or this specific action with that character when it fits a completely different role. And seeing people willing to change that to fit the story and to fit the actual character that they want to play.
That's true. And yeah, especially if there's a consensus around the table that like people kind of raise an eyebrow at something you did, but yeah, without policing the players either. But like, yeah, it's so easy sometimes to just go astray.
I don't know. I personally like playing those chaotic neutral characters or those chaotic lawful characters. But I know other people that becomes a gray area, especially in Dungeons and Dragons, because you're trying to play. I guess you have this image in your head, and it's so hard to toe that line between, okay, how do I play chaotic and good at the same time?
Yeah, a fun thing I started doing in my last few games is start with a very clear cut alignment. Start with either a goody two shoe or a mean boy. And then see like how play that kind of line until you change your alignment, until your character is forced to like reconsider their actions or like the events shape them. So I'm playing this very cliche anime lawful good like white mage, like Final Fantasy Tactics style white mage, and like in the Strahd campaign. And after 4 games, she went down the lawful good hill and rolled her way down into like weird gray neutral, and it's fun to see like that kind of like progression.
Right. I think it's always interesting to see how the story progresses because there are things that the DM can't account for in his planning. So it's always so interesting to see how the DM will take that story when he's I guess approached with unknown circumstances that he wasn't planning on.
Mm-hmm.
Have either of you had the opportunity to play DM or to play DM, to be DMs?
I've DM'd a bunch. I don't know if I've DM'd more than I've played in the past few years. Yeah, I think I have DM'd more.
What about you, Jamieson?
Yeah, I was designated DM for quite a while when I was starting off. And then later on, I found a group where there were a couple of other people who preferred to DM, which is always a rare and lucky thing. So I only got to do it when I wanted to after that, which was whenever we wanted to run a superhero game, that's when I would DM. But otherwise, it's been a while since I've run a game of D&D, though. It's been a long time.
Do you guys enjoy it, especially with that unknown aspect?
Oh yeah, I love it. I love the game.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun in some very different ways than playing, and it's fun in a lot of the same ways, right? Like I get the same kind of appreciation from it as I do as a player, just in different ways. It's more work, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think I play differently, or like my sessions play differently now as I get older and as I'm a different player now than I was in college, like the games tend to be more not lighthearted, but there's a lot less pressure that the players put on themselves, and like it's just so more relaxed now, so I can really dive into the world building without being afraid of like overcomplicating stuff or stuff like that. It's just fun. It's just a treat.
Yeah, no, I get that. Any parting shots to anybody listening out there for anything? I don't know, whether it be Dungeons and Dragons or comic book businesses or animating or what have you. This is your minute each.
Putting me on the spot.
Wear a mask, wash your hands.
Oh,
okay,
yeah, that's
there,
good.
Yeah. Learn some skill while you're stuck at home, because you should be quarantining. So stay at home, pick something up. If you haven't tried D&D, find a group online. There's groups all over the place that are forming online. Start a podcast. Use this time. Use this time.
Find a skill that could get you work in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody move to Canada. Get super low schooling. That's the real message behind this podcast today, is everybody move to Canada and just become a socialist.
Yeah, socialism works. That's my parting words.
Oh man, do you think Karl Marx would be happy?
I don't know. I think he'd be so with Quebec in general.
Yeah, I don't think he saw it working out the way it did in Canada, to be honest.
Free healthcare, but you could still work on your healthcare system. It's not perfect.
Free healthcare, but it's so cold.
It's so cold.
There you go. That's what it actually is. Oh my gosh, guys, I had a lot of fun with this. Thank you so much for being willing to do this despite your busy work schedules and recording. I really had a lot of fun with this. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had a blast. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Jamieson, let's start with you. Is there anywhere where people can find you if they want to find you?
Sure. Yeah, I'm on Twitter. Both my own handle is Kung Fu Viking, which is from an era ago when I used that handle a lot, and I also have a handle for my comics self-publishing for Bad Neighbor CMX on Twitter. I'm going to be running a Kickstarter in January, so get ready to hear a lot about that.
Heck yeah, I'll be excited for that. And I actually know now why your handle is Kung Fu Viking, because of season 4 of Arc 4.
That's true.
So everybody should know that now. Xavier, if people want to find you, where can they find you, Mr. Frenchman?
You can find me on Twitter at XavierTD for retweets for animated GIFs of explosions and veganism. This Twitter account is for no one.
I find it entertaining.
Thank you. And people might as well try to follow our DandR character Twitter accounts, because we put a lot of good jokes out there, and I feel like they don't quite get the same traction as they used to.
Very small audiences so far.
Actaronis' account still dwarfs all the other my other characters' accounts in terms of followers. So get on that.
Yeah, Actaronis is crazy. And so now, Xavier, before we end this, I want you to tell everybody at home, thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next one in French.
Merci de nous avoir écoutés. On se revoit la prochaine fois. Au revoir.
Hey, there we go. Perfect ending.
Woo!
Hey there, everybody. Whoa, that was a good episode. Oh my gosh. Jamieson and Xavier are such amazing people. Hopefully you enjoy this episode. Next week, we have an episode coming out with Jamieson. So if you want to get real down and nerdy with comics, not the Asian variety, the American variety, with Thor and all those other amazing characters, tune in next week for that. But until then, just remember to get some sunlight, get some water. Just because, remember, you're basically a houseplant with complicated emotions.